Hey everyone, welcome back to Full Stack Development with Ember.js and Rails. I am Josh Justice, aka Coding It Wrong, and I'm excited to be jumping in to the next part of this series as we build out an app together and really get into the experimentation phase. I have a few things to start out before we jump into building this UI together. The first thing is a heads up if you are watching this live or are watching the recording soon after this, the Ember.js Community Survey 2019 is open, and there are 11 days left. That looks like around March 12th or so is when it's going to shut down. So if you use Ember in any capacity, and I mean even like me, just kind of briefly checking it out on the side, the Ember community wants to hear from you. So check out the survey, fill it out, share about what's happening. The Ember community has really experienced some significant growth in the last year, so much so that it showed up in a really significant way in NPM's statistics. So we'd love to learn more about that. So sign up, Ember Community Survey. The link is down in the show notes, just like all the other links we're going to be talking about. Check that out. Not right now, though. Pay attention to what we're streaming. Next thing is Ember 3.8 has been released in the last week. So Ember is on a release schedule to have a new release every 6 weeks or so, and it's great to keep up to date with it. So I want to go ahead and update us to Ember 3.8, and I figure we do that on the stream so I can show you just how easy it is. Right now we barely have any application functionality at all, so it should be pretty easy to confirm that it's still working. And then in the future we'll have automated tests that are going to make it easy to test our app as it stays up to date. Now, I mentioned in the past an app called Dependabot that's going to go and automatically check your dependencies to see when there's a new version and create a pull request for you. With Ember, I like to do it manually, and here's why. So Ember is broken down to at least three main components, or packages. There's Ember.js itself, which is the main UI framework. There's Ember Data, which is the data layer we looked at last time. And there's Ember CLI, the runner that runs all of these. And so these are all released together on a similar release cycle, but within a few days of one another. And once Ember CLI is out, there's an Ember CLI update command you can run to update your app all at once. And in the past, running that command has made some changes to template files as well to kind of bring them up to date. So I like to use Ember CLI as a way to make sure that everything is the latest and the greatest so I can keep up with things. So let's get it running now. Let's make sure our app, actually I got my app going. We'll make sure it's working right now. I reload the page and we see we've got this data, these IDEA records that were loaded from our local Rails server. And we've got a new summary and quote field. Let me just type into here. Wow, monotype text. That's really crazy what happens when you don't have CSS applied to your web page, huh? Click add idea and it shows up. And when we reload the page, it's still there. So that's great, it's all working. Let's quit out of Ember here. Let's make a new branch called Ember 3.8 update. And then let's follow those instructions in the Ember 3.8 blog post. You can upgrade Ember CLI easily using the Ember CLI update project. So I've already npm installed the latest version of it. So we're just going to run in our project Ember CLI update. And you do want to make sure that there's no changes in your working directory because this is going to make changes to some files. And so we're going to run Ember CLI update and let it go. Might take a little while to run, hopefully not too long. We'll have some dead air while we do that. That'll be very exciting. And make sure my virus scanner doesn't take over my computer while this is happening. Okay, cool. So we're already done. It actually uses some branching internally to kind of make the changes. We've got a little error here, but it may not be anything substantial. Oh, okay. So there was a change to an ESLint file. So that's interesting. So we have, let's just check the changes that were made so far. All right, ESLint, there's been a file conflict, but it's just adding a new entry for server to make sure that that is linted by ESLint, so that's good. I think we'll keep that. So let's open up our file, Ember ESLint RC. Server.js is also a node file, so that's fine. So let's see, there's a new ignore that they put in the default ignore file. Our ESLint RC file does not look saved, so let's see what's up with that. Am I missing some changes? Oh, there we go. Okay, so now it's added. So to our ESLint file, added a new entry and a new entry to git ignore, but mostly we've updated Ember CLI from 3.7.1 to 3.8.1. Another Ember CLI dependency there, but Ember Data and Ember Source both updated to 3.8, so that's great. We can, let's go ahead and do a yarn install to install these, and then we're going to run our app and make sure it still works, just using manual testing for now. I'm going to go ahead and talk ahead about what we're going to be doing after this. So as I mentioned last time, we showed on the screen just the basics of loading up some idea data in our app. So I've worked on this app, tried to start this as a hobby app in the past, and I haven't been able to get my head around it. I haven't been able to get motivated that what I'm working on is really useful, but I think it should be. And so what I want to do now, today, is to put in a UI library into our Ember app to make it feel more like a regular app so that the look and feel is not distracting. So that we can play with it, set it up in a quick way to see what it's like to have an app that feels like a real app that's storing this data for us and making it available to us. And we're going to move the data around rapidly to try it out and just see what it looks like if we can get it to something that was useful and enjoyable for us. So that's what we're going to do as soon as we finish this update. Okay, the update is finished. We see the yarn lock file is in there, so we're just going to do ember s for ember serve again. And once it starts up, we're going to make sure our app is still working okay. I'm running my Rails server locally as well, but as we mentioned last time, it's a separate project in a separate folder, so no restart is necessary or anything like that. It can be easy to procrastinate on updating your dependencies, but if you do that, it can get harder and harder to update them over time. So when you can test them out, and especially when you have automated tests that ensure your app is still working, that lets you have the latest and greatest to avoid security vulnerabilities and things like that. Well, if this doesn't start up soon enough, I'm probably going to go ahead and look into the UI libraries. Oh, no, there we go. We're ready. Localhost 4200. We reload it. It loads the data just fine. And now let's type in here another summary, another quote. Might have to delete out this garbage data at some point. It adds itself, and when we reload the page, we're fine. So that makes sense, and it makes sense because we're using very trivial features of Ember so far, but we're good to go. So we're going to add this, say, update Ember to 3.8. Now we're set. Actually, I'm going to rename this branch because this doesn't make sense. UI library. That's going to be our branch. All right, so let's talk about UI libraries. So whether you're using Ember or another front-end framework, there's lots of UI libraries that are out there these days giving you components that are preset to give your site a nice look and feel. And so this is great when you don't want to start with this blank page like we have right here with just Times New Roman text and black on white, but you want to start with something a bit more advanced. And especially for someone like me who isn't visually design inclined, it's like designing it from scratch, it would look terrible, and so I'm much better served using a UI component library for personal projects. It's also great because we can focus on the concepts of what we're building instead of visual details at this point while we're experimenting. So from what I can tell in the Ember community, I should do a quick plug for Ember Observer. So Ember Observer is a site that you could go to find out different Ember add-ons that are available. There are categories and lots of different categories. You can see from the timestamps here that they're updated recently. This is either the add-ons themselves that were updated in the last few days, or else the reviews of them. But you're going to get a lot of data on how it works. There's a rating on a score of 1 to 10 that's going to show how well the app is doing. How up to date it is, how useful it is. And as I went through Ember Observer, which is always a good place to go to look for Ember add-ons, there's 2 UI libraries that seem to kind of rise to the top. There's Ember Bootstrap and ember-paper. So Bootstrap is a classic library. It was kind of one of the earlier, not component libraries per se, but CSS libraries for a look and feel for websites. And it's been a go-to for me that I've used a lot. Ember-paper is an implementation of Google's material design. And you're probably familiar with this just about React and Vue. I would assume Angular as well, probably especially Angular for material design. But there's Bootstrap and there's material design libraries in all of these front-end frameworks. So I was so close to going with Bootstrap for this project because it's my go-to, and also I really like the list view that it offers. It makes it really nice to have a vertical list of records, which looks really good on a mobile device. But something drew me to Ember-paper. Let me see if I can show you what it is. Is it just called Card? Yeah, it's cards. So something about this, like the visual metaphor of the card, is nice. And it feels like it's something tangible, like I can kind of pick up and hold on to these ideas that I have. And so I feel like this would look good. And also, cards can be organized in different ways. So if we need to show them left or right of one another, or above or below one another, or have different kind of content on it, like the visuals here are just encouraging for the kind of app I want to build. So I think this time we're going to go with Ember-paper to install it and give it a try. So let's do it. Let's close our other tabs and let's get going with Ember-paper. So to install an Ember add-on, you pretty much need to just run ember install. So let's run ember install ember-paper. The reason we use ember install instead of just npm or yarn directly is because add-ons can do additional configuration in your project as you go. In particular, we can see here that ember-paper is creating a Sass file in your styles. It's going to install Ember CLI Sass, another project, and some other ones will create entries in environment files or in Babel configurations or things like that. So just by running through Ember, add-ons are able to configure themselves to take advantage of Ember's conventions to do some setup to make the process good for you. Just about every add-on I've worked with, you just run Ember install and then you're set to go. And that's a big part of Ember's philosophy is skipping past the boilerplate and the frustrating setup. They can just slow things down. Again, we're trying to move as rapidly as we can here, so that setup is good. Yeah, so we can see here, now it's said that apps SCSS was created there, so that's cool. All right, let's start browsing through here. There's something about content security policy that's not needed for newer Embers. There's some options, don't need to worry about, so we're good. So we just really have this list of components that we want to work with. All right, so we stop Ember. We'll start it again. I'm going to actually pull up the Ember guides because we're going to need those in just a minute to take a look at something that we're going to look at. Okay, let's look at our page while Ember is starting up. So this is just empty. Well, the main thing we have here, we have this little form to add in a new idea. And we put it here on the same page just to make sure it was available for us easily as we were experimenting with Ember data last time. But really, this list of these ideas and the quotes that go along with them, I think, is sort of the main thing that I want to see on this page. So without thinking about it too much, let's just start putting some components on the page and seeing what they look like. So I'm going to go in here. This is all in our application template, I believe. Nope, in our index template. This new idea form. I'm actually glad I put this into a component because we can just remove it entirely because I don't want that right now. Let's reload the app and make sure it's good. If you can tell when you look closely here, we actually already have a different font. And so the fonts specified by Material Design, or at least by ember-paper, are being applied. So things already look a bit more intentional. I do see that the content is going right to the edge of the page. So I'm going to go ahead and look into page layout because that's going to be nice to prevent things from just bumping up against the edges. So let's see here. Color theme layout. Let's take a look at layout here. Introduction. Layout containers. All right, so here, layout class and row, layout row. Maybe we should have skimmed through this a little bit more. Let's give it a try. Let's not give it a try. This is too abstract for me to figure out on the stream, so I'll look into it next time, or if I get frustrated enough, we'll look into it. But components are straightforward, so let's take a look. I want to just try putting things into cards. So we see cards here. What is a card? So a card has a title and media and actions. So this is already kind of nice. This is concepts that are interacting together, and I definitely feel like we're going to have action buttons on our different ideas to be able to interact with them. And you'll see here that there's this double curly syntax being used for these components. So this is not what we used last time. So last time when we added the new idea form, we used curly syntax for components. And this is a newer syntax that Ember has adopted in, I think Ember 3.4 is when it came out. So that's the standard. It's in plain old, stable, complete release of Ember, but not all the add-ons have been updated for it. And that makes sense because older versions of Ember can't use it yet. So although it's a little bit more of a mental jump, as we're going through here, I'm going to translate these older style curly components into newer style angle bracket components and kind of give you a sense of how you can do that. And that way, being used in the syntax is probably more familiar and feels more modern. So we have a paper card. I think, what's going to be a good way to separate this? I think I'm going to need this as like a good reference next to me. So I'm just going to put this over here. That feels like about half the screen. And then we'll put the code over here. That feels good. So first, let's just kind of get something basic going to make sure that we do in fact have access to these components. I mentioned before, we got some spoilers here about layout rows. That could be useful. So I mentioned before that in Ember, you don't need to import components into anywhere. They're available kind of globally within the application. So this means we're going to be able to get access to them in here. So when we see a curly component here with paper-card, this is now a familiar camel case syntax. So now we just do paper card. We do as, which is basically going to pass you a variable inside, and we'll just call that card paper card. That's going to allow us to have access to card-related subcomponents underneath here. So in the paper card, we're going to say card.title as title. So this approach of like yielding this sub object here is similar to render props in React, and is similar to scoped slots in Vue. So it's just these ways to compose components in a really reusable way. So even the title text is a child component. So let's try that. This is a lot of layers, but you got to have a lot of layers to get that nice card look and feel. So now we can here we can do text headline, and we're going to say idea.summary. Now maybe that could be too big, but we'll just find out. And notice that when we're interpolating values into the components, just like in Vue.js, we're using curlies to be able to include those there, so those don't turn into angle brackets, of course, because it's not a component, it's just inserting content. So that's, let's go ahead and try that subhead to see how that works, because we need to include this quote anyways, at least we're thinking about it. We'll copy over idea.quote. Here's our text subhead. So this should give us a list of paper cards, and let's find out if we have that. Put this over here. In fact, let's just put this over here too. All right, so we have a series of cards here. They're stacked one on top of one another. And the ones that have short quotes look just fine, but the ones that have long quotes, like this is kind of long. And so the first thing that comes to mind for me here is like maybe we don't want the full quote showing up in the list. Part of the idea of having these ideas versus the quotes themselves is that I want to take the original context where somebody explains some important idea, but I want to have a version that I boil it down to so that I can understand it and see it at a glance and contrast and compare them. I want to work with these ideas together. So I think I don't want the quote on this page. And I didn't know that in advance. I just needed to see it in front of me to be able to play around with things like this. I also see that this welcome to Ember message is still here, and I don't really want that. I could get some kind of header. I think I would like to get some kind of header. So now we've got some cards showing up here, and now before we kind of extract like separate pages for these, let's go into here and see what options ember-paper has for like a application header. So let's look here into components. You kind of have to get familiar with the different names they call things. Is it a menu? Not really a drop-down menu. That's not what we're looking for. I like those animations. Those are sweet. That's one of the nicest things about these material design libraries. Is it tab? Is it a toolbar? Yeah, toolbar looks good. Okay, cool. So let's try a toolbar. Maybe we won't get it later just perfect, but we'll give it a try. So we're going to do a paper toolbar, and again, we're turning it into a camel case, and that's just what all you have to do when all you're doing is when there aren't even any attributes to pass to it. Okay, so then paper toolbar tools. And then we don't really need a menu button yet, but we'll just use this H2. I want to stick as close as possible to this UI library's conventions just to get something nice and usable that kind of comes out of it. So we'll call this ideas, because that's the name of our app that we're calling it. And we've put this header here in the application template, which means it'll be used for all screens on our application. There will be like a header that's always there. So it automatically reloads and gives us the header on top, so that's very nice. It's a little bit, I think it's a little bit bigger because we're zoomed in a bit more on that tab. And so we need a color. We got the nice ember orange here, and that was sort of appealing. But I have a particular brand that I've been using, my kind of super glowy color. You can see it on my website here. Very glowy on an Apple monitor in particular. So I'm going to see if I can find that theming real quick. This isn't the most important thing in the world, but I'm taking this very subjectively. Like, what can I put in here to give this app an identity of its own so that as I'm playing with it, it just feels like something good? I don't know. Okay, so themes and colors. To customize the default theme, you can override the Sass variables for each intention. Ooh. So this is an app Sass. Under styles, app SCSS. Import ember-paper, and then we're going to say primary, and then we're going to just add the color, and I happen to know that color is def00. So let's see if that does it. It is going to automatically reload. Nope. Color. Null is not a color. All right, well that does not like it. Let's see. I don't know anything about Sass almost, so let's just try like that. Oh, could I do like this? This is a CSS file. All right, let's look through here some more. All the palettes, creating custom palettes. Oh, that's not going to be an option. All right, so I can't make that. But But let's do lime. That seems like that might be one of the most close things to what we're looking for. That's a little darker than I'd like, but it's something unique and different. So we got lime. I don't know if I can deal with that. Let's try something else. Yellow. This doesn't have to be the final look and feel we're going for. That's pretty good. Light green. That's not that light. I like yellow. That feels a bit on brand. So we'll go with yellow for now. So we've got this ideas app. Cool. Do I want to commit this yet? I'm going to make a commit that adds in at least the addition of ember-paper, and then we'll kind of go from there. So open up a new terminal. Waiting. App ideas ember. We'll say add ember-paper. And then we can go ahead and add the application template. Add header. But we'll keep the cards as is because I think we're going to change those as we go. So, cool. So we want to take off the quote on here. And we're going to save that for a subpage. So let's just take off the subhead. This should reload in just a second. Yeah, okay. Cool. So we would want to link from here. I suppose you could just click on the text, but let's see what else the card offers us. Maybe buttons. Got cards with buttons. A kind of subtext. Card with image large. Got media. I got paper buttons. Media. Let's start with a button because it's like so typical, and then if we don't like that, we can turn it into a link clicking on the text. So yeah, let's just see, just to get a chance to try it. So parallel to card title, we have card actions. We don't need to kind of pass a block parameter to that. So here we just do a paper button. Apparently that's a paper button you can use different kind of places. We'll say, we just need one, and we'll just say details. It's gonna reload. We've got a details button there. Yeah, that's good. I mean, a little bit of wasted white space here for these small ones, but that's okay. Okay, probably by next time I should come up with some better quote data to make it feel more reasonable. So we want to click, oh, and check out that material design little ripple. That's cool. I don't know if you can see that in the video. I can see it. All right, so we want to be able to get to a detail page, I think, to see the details about this idea. So it's, I mean, cards, of course, kind of are reminiscent of Trello. So we got a bit of a Trello feel right here, having these cards in front of us. So let's see how we can drill down to get to the details of the card. We're going to want to create another route because that's going to be another screen. As you're navigating around different things in your Ember application, Ember has a router built in and really prioritizes the idea of routing. So let's work with that. We have this router, and it has no routes listed by default, but we are going to be able to add one. So let's say ember g route. I call it ideas. Let's say idea. I'm going to go with ideas plural because that's what I'm used to from Rails and other environments, so I think I'm less likely to make a mistake. So this is going to be a route that's called /ideas that's going to be able to hold our ideas underneath it, and we're going to change it so that there's an ID in the URL for which idea that we're pulling up. My virus scanner is getting in the way here. This is supposed to be pretty quick. I'm sure doing live streaming doesn't help either. So this is going to make a new route in here for us that we're going to be able to work with. So you'll see in the router file here, it's already kind of created an entry in here that says, under the router map, it says this.route ideas. So this allows us to have an ideas route in here. And then I think path here, we want to specify the path of it. By default, the path is just ideas, but we want to say ideas/ID. And so this is going to allow us to pass an ID to it. So we also have an ideas route here. Is that what we want? Ideas is going to have an ideas index route, and I think this is good for now. So we've got this. We want to load a model in here, and so and then params is here. We're going to take in the ID. So destructure the params to get the ID in there. So how are we going to do that? Let's look back at our index route to confirm. We call this.store.findAll idea. I'm going to pull up my Ember reference. So I'm not in Ember every day, and so if you're an Ember expert, these things will be very obvious to you, but I don't work in it day to day. So I've got some reference here that I put together to be able to try to do this a bit better. But if you're watching on the stream, or if you are checking out the recording later, feel free to jump in the chat or the comments and let me know things that I'm missing, because I'm happy to improve my Ember skills. That would be great. So in the model here is where we're loading the data for the route that we're on. So we're going to return this.store to load data out of the Ember data store. And we're going to do find record of type idea singular. Yeah, type idea singular. And ID is going to be the ID that we're using. So we save that. That's going to load our idea there. Oh, and now we need a link to it. So I'm used to using the link to helper, but for the button, let's see how that works. Let's look up the ember-paper button and see how it works. On click, so it lets you do an action. Is there a way to easily just have it go to a link? Oh, here we go, link buttons. Displays the button as a link to the specified destination URL. Okay, so that's actually making it look like a link. So that's not what I'm really looking for. So yeah, there might be a simpler way to do this, but we're going to actually need to go through an action here to make it work. So let's get this working. So actually, let me make sure we can see what's going on this ideas page. We say this is the ideas page, and make sure that works, just to kind of increase our confidence. Like ideas 42. Did that load or did that error out? It errored out. Oh yeah, because this is actually hitting the real server, and ideas 42 does not exist. So let's hit ideas 1 instead. That came back. It just says this is the ideas page with that hard-coded data. So you know what, now that we've got this page here, like let's go ahead and throw a card on it. Maybe we won't keep a card in the long term. Let's just get something in front of us to be able to visualize it and tell what we're going on. So instead of idea, it's called model, because that's the page we're on. And I think text headline was instead called, oh yeah, the sub-headline was called text.subhead. Model a quote. So we'll show that. We'll render it out. Page reloads, and cool, we're good. Maybe we don't want the button here. But now we've got like this bigger card. It's like the card has expanded, and now it's filling it up, and we see the quote in there as well. Cool, so now we just need to work on the navigation from this details button. So let's figure out how to do that. Probably we want to execute an action for the button, so let's go back to the buttons to see how to do that. On click. Now, so here's the deal. So we've got properties going into these old curly style components, or arguments passed to them. And so if we want arguments passed in like this, we use the @ sign in the new Ember curly style. So let's go here and do that. So for this paper button, I'm going to put it on multiple lines because I generally like to do that, and especially now that I have so little horizontal screen space to do it in. So we're going to say @ on click instead. And that would work just the same as if you were in a single line, but I'm going to put it in multiple lines here. So when you have an @ attribute, you use curlies to show that there's some JavaScript that's going to happen in there. And then within here, we could call this action helper to set up an action. Another kind of syntax tweak for a newer Ember is here they have the name of an action that's passed in as a string, but I believe we should be able to say this dot, so it's like go to detail, go to idea detail, we'll call it that. This dot go to idea detail to call that action. And we can actually query it to pass our arguments to it as well. So we'll say, we'll pass the idea record to it. So let's see if this works. Let's do this by going into the, well, you know what? This is probably actually going to need a component that it lives under. And that's going to be good anyways, because this is getting big. This is just living in a route template. But yeah, to be able to have access to an action, it's going to be easier if we have all this in a component. So let's put it in a component. Ember G component idea card. That seems good. Maybe we'll have several types of idea card just because of a small one and a big one, but just one name for an idea card seems like it's good for now. I'm representing my brand here, Mountain Dew. Love that stuff. They don't pay me anything. It'd be nice if they would. It'd be nice if I had a big old audience to get me some Mountain Dew. That'd be wonderful. I just adhere to that old programmer stereotype, that's for sure. All right, so we've got an idea card. And now because we don't need to import our components into anywhere, we can just copy and paste this content over where we want it to go. So we'll just take everything over into the template for the component, idea card, and we'll put it there. I'm going to take this on-click back out because I just want to get it working first for idea.summary. And so now we're going to say, for each model, render idea card, and then at idea equals curly idea. Now, another thing is when we're passing in arguments to a component, we put the @ sign in front of it. And then in the template where we're using them, we put the @ sign as well. And this indicates to us that this is an argument that's been passed into the component rather than something that's computed or calculated internally. So let me just go in here and say, this is idea card, so we can see that it is idea card. We'll reload in here. And it looks like it's not coming up. So at idea is not showing up here. So I've done something wrong. So let's find out what that is. We do see that idea card is being rendered just fine there. So that's good. Idea equals idea. Maybe maybe it doesn't need curlies, or maybe we'll get an error. So let's find out. This is me learning modern Ember here. So that didn't error out. So that's actually surprising to me. What if I do something manifestly bad called idea right there? Yeah, all right. Well, let's go and look into the Ember docs and see what we want here. Oh, is it double curlies? Whoa, Ember, you gotta love those double curlies, man. Yeah, there we go. All right, so now we know. Gotta have those double curlies in Ember. So we have the idea argument. We're passing in this idea variable, and then it's a variable in here as at idea, and it's showing up. So now we've got this component. We should be set to put an action on it to be able to go to here. So at on click equals probably double curlies action go to idea detail, and we actually don't need to curry pass an argument to that here because this component is already going to have an access to its idea attribute. I forget how it is, but we're going to find out together. So to get this working, this is already, oh yeah, so we've got an error here that action passed is null or undefined, so it's making sure that the action is actually there. So let's add it into our component here. We're going to import these decorators. So we use this ES6 decorators to be able to indicate things. I'm going to need to pull them up in the reference here. I made a decorator reference to be able to get access to this stuff. Decorating guide. All right, so we have action from Ember decorators object. Okay, so action to indicate that this is an action, and then after that, it's just a plain ES6 class, ES6 method. So it's called go to idea detail. So let's just log out that action's been called. Let this reload. Now it doesn't error out, and when I click on details, it says go to idea detail. So that's great. So now let's see if we have access to that idea that was passed in. I'm forgetting how that's accessible as well, so let's check this out here. Yeah, we can render a component lifecycle, passing properties to a component. There we go. Post.model, title, post.title, additional parameters. All right, I'm going to find this in here. I think it's might be, well, let's just try this dot idea. I think that might not work, but let's see. Go to idea detail. Yeah, look, it does. Okay, cool. So yeah, see our idea object is being passed in here. It might also be available under this.adders.idea. No adders in components. Okay, so that's an older thing that I heard about that we don't want to do. Do not do that, apparently. All right, so we're good. So we've got our idea card here. When we click on details, we've got access to the idea that we need to go to. And so then we're going to just go to it programmatically. So we want to get access to the routing service here so that our idea card component can send us there. So we want to import the service. So the service we want is called routing Routing? I'm not sure. Let's check in here and see. Routing. Redirecting. Transition to. Let's Google this real quick. Ember accessing router in component. I know I did this in my side project Ember app. I just don't remember. Ember inject service routing. Okay, cool. So service routing is probably what we want. And then we say this.routing transition to. And so let's take a look and see what transition to does. The parameters that it takes. All right, we want the kind of path to it. So transition to ideas, and then we pass this dot idea as the idea that we're transitioning to. All right, so let's see if this works. We're on the page here. Nope, something is errored out, so let's see. Unknown injection service routing. Oh, dash routing is a private one. Actions bubble up to a route. Route action helper. Well, that's not going to be a great way to do it. Let's check my other project and see how I did it in there. So my other project is called Firehose, and Firehose is like a paper substitute. Pocket substitute for storing links and articles and videos you want to reference to get back to them later. And so it's open source, and so you can run it yourself, and so you have access to all your data instead of it belonging to Pocket. So let's see in here if I figure out how to do it. A router service will land in the near future. Interesting. Okay. Come on. My JavaScript app here going a little slow. All right, so I've got a front-end directory in here. I'm going to look for transition to see how I did this. Controller. So I was using kind of controller heavy here, and that would be best not to get into. Yeah, I was searching for a lot of stuff, so that's not happening. Okay. Well, it looks like we're going to need to use a controller. That's really unfortunate. Ember public routing service is coming soon. So let's see if we can find that in the Ember docs. Ember public routing service. I gave up on the docs. I decided immediately to Googling. A router service. Is it called router instead? Router. Yeah, there we go. Okay, this might work better. All right, so our page loads. We click details. This routing is undefined because it's called this router instead. So let's reload. And now we're good. Now that we're from our main page here, when we click on details, we route to the page that's specific to that idea. Cool, so we're making some progress. So this seems good. This seems like a good point to commit our code. Cards for list and detail page. We've added cards for list and detail page. Cool, so now let's think about what's next. So we have a bunch of these ideas. We see the high level here, and then we click on details, we see some more details. And I only have a few fields here. It's really going to be nice once we have another record. And I wanted to have the concept of a source as well. So you have ideas from a source, like a book or a conference talk. And so you can have multiple ideas coming from one source, and that would be helpful. At first, I thought that you could have multiple sources with one idea, but it's like, then they would have multiple quotes. So that's maybe that's a different way of setting it up. Maybe that's a join table. So in our next week, we're going to have to think about the data model some for ways to combine this together. But in the meantime, let's just kind of continue to visualize this to see how it goes. This is looking kind of large. This text is kind of large, and that button's kind of down there. So let's think about what we're doing here. We've got a list of ideas. Eventually, they're going to be organized underneath different sources. Probably, will they have tags? They'll probably have different topic tags as well. I imagine that's something we'll get into. So that might be some of the next focus in the next few weeks that we do, is adding in these richer data models and then navigating around the app to get things together. Oh, I already see something that I want to change though. I've gotten distracted. Action go to idea detail. I think that would actually work with a string as well. So let's reload the page and see. Yep, so you can give it the string name of it. And you can also do this dot go to idea detail as well, I think. And Ember is moving towards using this dot explicitly in the templates, and we see here that it does work, because that makes it clear that this is a property on the component itself. So I think I want to use that, and so we're just going to add that and keep that in the commit as well. So we've got these cards, we've got these quotes, they're showing up. What do I want to do? I'm not sure. So let's see, we got decorators, we've got ember paper. Let's see what else might be nice. Autocomplete, checkbox, dialogue, grid list. Would we consider having them in a two-dimensional grid? Right now, I think the quotes are going to be long enough that although I mentioned having kind of multiple cards organized in different ways together, like I think just having them extend full width for now is going to be good. Select side nav. So maybe now would be a good chance to kind of set the look and feel of the top. And this is something where it's very interesting, because although I'm not a big time visually inclined person, it's like I'm distracted when things are too bad. So like when this is just so wide, it goes all the way across like the entire width of everything, like that's a little distracting. And so I think if this would feel more like a real app to me if we could constrain the width of the screen area. So let's try that. Like let's take a few minutes to think through the layout functionality of this, and then next time we'll get into kind of data relationships, connecting them together. So we've got layout, angular materials, the class names going to drive, and then the layout, flex, responsive layout classes. All right, well, I don't know, kind of moving all around and stuff. I just want like some kind of maximum width. And this says maximum width, but like centered and stuff. Layout margin, layout padding. Let's take a look at what Angular Materials layout is. This is one of the unfortunate things about having like add-ons and things like that wrap other libraries, is you don't necessarily have all the documentation right in front of you. You might have to look at your component documentation and then go over to the CSS library's documentation. And that's something that anything that's a component library is going to experience as well. Is this gonna tell us what to do? It's not. All right, well. Layout row. Okay. Line space around. Layout margin. Yeah, this is not. Layout containers. Yeah, this is not obvious to me. Layout children, text alignment. I think under one of the components I was seeing some hints. Let's take a look at cards here. So we have some layouts here. So let's see what those mean. Extra small column, flex grid, extra small 50. So it's like this is kind of segmented there. So, I'm getting discouraged at my ability to do this on the fly with like a massive amount of experimentation. So this is one of the reasons that it's good to pick a component library and stick with it, to be able to try it out. Let's try Ember Paper Centered Layout. I want someone to do it for me. Ember Paper Introduction. Layout align center. Yeah, this is not going to come together very well. So I'm going to look into this offline and save it for next week. So what we're going to focus on right now is the fact of what we've gotten done so far. We've got a header. We've got a details page. Let's put in a back button real quick to be able to get back to the main page. And it would be nice if the header there was linked as well. So let's do those two real quick. All right, we've got components. Components have a toolbar. There's a toolbar button. That's a button. Oh, go back. That's good. Paper button, icon button. No, that's not right. Go back. Paper button. Okay, yeah, so just having a button there and there works. So let's try that. Let's say for the header of our application. Yeah, but actually getting that from a route is going to be difficult. So actually we'll move that into a component as well. So yeah, this would be good to round it out. Ember G component app header. Why not? Make an app header component. We'll put it right here. When you have components, you can put actions on them, and then that makes it easier to move stuff around. So let's go with that. Okay, we got our app header. We'll put it here. We want a let's actually make sure we haven't blown anything up, and it's still there. So now we'll do a paper button. Paper button is there. Reload. Doesn't seem to be interactable right now, so let's add an onClick equals action this dot go to root. So, and usually there's a link to helper that Ember uses to allow you to navigate, but for now we have to use actions because we're using this paper button component rather than just plain old links and things like that. So that's our app header. Yep, and so now in our app header, we're just going to duplicate what's in the idea card. We need the action, and we need to inject a service. Say action, go to root. We need the service itself. Router service is injected into here, and then router transition to index. I think will give us the index of the whole application. So let's give it a try. We reload, and ideas is, well, let's try. Ideas is still not clickable, so I've done something wrong. Paper button, go back. Yes, that is a button. Why is this not a button? Well, let's use the Ember inspector. We can go down here into Ember components. We got the paper toolbar tools. Oh, have I just not saved? Oh, I just haven't saved the application template. So we did not actually get the header coming from the app header component at all. All right, so now we got ideas. It's a button. That is kind of weird. It changes the look and feel of it, but that's okay. We can leave that for now. So now we can navigate back to the back and go into the ideas page and go back. And I think like a back button on the page would be nice as well. So let's go here. No, I don't want to put this in the idea card. Well, yeah, we wouldn't put it on the idea card anyways. It's in the ideas route here. But even in this, we're going to need that button to have access to something. So we're going to call this component back button. We'll just put a back button here. And that back button is going to have the same functionality added into it. All right, we've got our back button. It's going to have very similar action inject, action inject. We got a router, and then we got our action go to root, and I'm going to duplicate that over because that does not seem like code that needs to be shared. That's just nice and straightforward. And back button component is going to have a paper button. I'll put this on one row here on click equals action this go to root back. No, just the word back. Thank you. Paper button. All right. So now we're going to reload the page. Go to details. We've got a back. I'm going to do a little arrow pointing left. I don't know if that's material design, but I'm going to do it. So now we can go back. All right, this feels navigable. This feels like a real application. Now think about this. This feels much more approachable to me. Aesthetically, this feels like a real thing that I can work with. And I say, no, okay, now I have a list of ideas. What do I want to do with that? What is going to make this more useful to me? So this is really great. This is a great experience with ember-paper. You can get similar experiences with material design frameworks and other UI frameworks, whatever front-end library you're using, or even if you're using a server-rendered application. and it makes it a lot faster to iterate. I mean, imagine having to get the sizing of this and the header and spacing and things like that. Like, it's just not great, and the benefits are going to get more and more as we add more and more sophisticated things into our application, like navigation links across the top and things like that. So I'm very excited about the direction we're going. I'm excited to dive into our data model next time to make things richer. I'm excited to get my custom branded color across the top here to make it look really nice. So thanks for joining in. I'd encourage you to check out Ember Paper if you're an Ember user. It's really nice. It's got a nice look. I can't get enough of that nice little ripple effect. I'm an iOS user, so I don't see this kind of stuff every day. It's real pretty. It's good. So yeah, that's what we got. Hey, thanks so much for joining this week. I think I had another thing or two that I was going to plug, so let me see what that was. Talk about the community survey. I'll say that again. The link for the community survey is in the show notes, so please check it out and contribute. The other thing I wanted to plug is that, well, and I've lost it there. That would be why, so I'm having trouble finding it. I wanted to plug Embercasts. So these are a screencast you can subscribe to learn all about creating applications with Ember and with a backend of your choice. So you can build Ember apps on top of Rails, on top of Phoenix with Elixir, on top of ASP.NET Core. I feel like there might have been one other option. I think there might be a Node one as well. Rails, Phoenix, Node.js, ASP.NET Core. So I highly recommend them. And there is a deal heading up to EmberConf 2019 that's happening in just a few days. So all of their courses are $99, which is a 80% savings. So that's a huge deal. I went through Embercasts for Ember and Rails and really, really loved it, so I recommend it. So you should definitely check it out at embercast.com. If you're enjoying what we're learning here, this will take you even to the next level and really help you grow as an Ember developer and learn how the whole application works front end to back end, so you can really be a full stack developer and not just isolated just on the back end or just on the front end. So thanks so much for joining in, everybody. Again, I'm Josh Justice, aka Coding It Wrong, and I would love for you to reach out to me. You can hit me up on Twitter at Coding It Wrong. Check out Twitch, my Twitch channel, Coding It Wrong, or my YouTube channel. It's linked down in the show notes. And you can also hit me up on the Ember Discord that's also linked down there. Let's talk in real time about the Ember app you're building and what you like about it, or questions you have or frustrations you have, and we'll work together. And thanks so much for joining, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Let's go to the slide. See ya.